You want to know how a pink tracksuit and a handful of sunflower seeds almost destroyed my sanity, my backyard, and for a while, my faith in humanity? Stick around because this story's got it all sneaky. Power grabs, neighborhood spies, and a twist ending that'll make you want to call your city council right after. My name's Mike Davis, civil engineer homeowner, not a troublemaker by nature, but 2 years ago when I moved into Meadowbrook Estates, I had no idea I was stepping into a war zone disguised as a quiet suburban neighborhood. At first it was all polite waves, barbecue invitations, and neat little lawns. But then there was Karen Thompson, the HOA president, always marching around in blinding pink clipboard under one arm, always ready to slap you with a violation for breathing too loud on a Sunday. I figured if I just kept my head down, followed the rules, things would be fine. I'm a simple guy. Give me a cold beer and a tomato plant, and I'm happy. So that's exactly what I did, set up a vegetable garden out back. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes, peppers, a couple herbs, something honest to work with after long days designing security systems for people I'd never meet. You know what I mean? But I guess that patch of green was just too much for Karen, who seemed to think community standards meant whatever popped into her head that morning. The first strike came quick, a violation notice for aesthetic disruption, $50 due in 10 days. I laughed, checked the HOA bylaws, and realized I was completely within my rights. Personal gardens were allowed if maintained and under a certain size. I called her office, got brushed off by her assistant, who said Karen was too busy running the universe to talk. Next week, another fine, $50 for unauthorized agriculture, then $75 for repeat violations. I started keeping the notices in a folder I labeled Karen's Greatest Hits. At some point, the rules started to feel like they were changing just to keep up with my stubbornness. Each letter was more ridiculous than the last. I asked for documentation. They sent me a blurry photocopy that looked like it had gone through a shredder. So I went to the board meeting thinking maybe the other HOA folks would be more reasonable. Showed up at the community center, paperwork in hand, empty. Called Karen, got a lecture about how busy professionals can't accommodate everyone's schedule. By the end of the month, I'd racked up over $300 in fines. Paid them, sure, but now I was looking for legal options and watching my back. That's when the circus really started. Karen ramped up her campaign, holding community meetings right in front of my house every Saturday morning, rallying the neighbors against blight, which apparently was code for my peppers and tomatoes. She even circulated pamphlets with photos of beautiful lawns on one side, and you guessed it, my garden shot from the worst angle she could find on the other, slapped with problem property in bold red letters. You know what really stings? People started looking at me different. Mrs. Peterson, who used to wave, now disappeared behind her curtains every time I stepped outside. Karen had her little squad too, self-appointed neighborhood enforcers reporting every so-called infraction. Suddenly my trash can was out too early, my mower was too loud, my grass was a quarter inch too tall. But the worst was the surveillance. Every morning at 7:30, Karen would show up with a camera notepad and measuring tape stalking along my fence, snapping photos and jotting notes like she was gathering evidence for a federal trial. She'd say, "If you have nothing to hide, why are you so concerned?" and flash that smug practice smile. It got under my skin in a way I can't explain, felt like I was living in some HOA police state. Then came her magnum opus, a community meeting billed as protecting our neighborhood investment. Fancy invitations for everyone, except me. I found out when I saw all the cars at the center. Walked in to see Karen with a PowerPoint slides of current problem properties, my garden front and center, caught on a week I'd been out of town, and things looked rough. She pitched stronger enforcement mechanisms to the crowd, threw shade at non-compliant residents, and made a big show of how one person could ruin everyone's property values. The moment she noticed me in the back, she did this dramatic pause. "Oh, Mike, how nice of you to join us." 30 pairs of eyes all on me. For the first time in my life, I felt like the villain in my own neighborhood. But the real breaking point came the morning I saw Karen in my yard, kneeling in my vegetable plot, planting sunflowers with a little trowel. not even making eye contact, just digging away, acting like this was her yard, not mine. I walked out in pajamas, coffee in hand, brain trying to process. Karen, what are you doing? You installed a gate on my property without my permission. You're trespassing, and now you're destroying my garden. What gives you the right? She just laughed, actually laughed, and said, You still don't get how community associations work. When one resident refuses to comply, we have authority to take corrective measures. She even waved a blurry, unsigned approval at me, like that settled it. That evening, as the sun set and I nursed my third cup of coffee, it hit me. Maybe I couldn't win by playing her game. But what if I played mine? I pulled up the city's property records. Perk of working on government projects is you know where to look, and guess what? That fence between our lots was off. My land extended 3 feet further than the fence showed. Karen's precious new gate that she'd paid $200 for using HOA funds, mind you, wasn't just on my land. It was on land she had no right to touch. And I had the survey data to prove it. That's when Operation Brickwall began. Called up Tommy Rodriguez, a buddy from old Army projects, now a master mason. You want a wall? I'll give you a wall, Mike, bulletproof if you need it. Second call went to Ben Harrison, the retired teacher at the end of the street who just happened to be a former city inspector. Karen's been out of control for years. Ben said, I'll introduce you to Sarah Martinez, a property lawyer who loves taking on HOA bullies. Sarah, it turned out, already had a thick file on Karen. Past abuses, shady fines, even talks about her selling off pieces of the neighborhood to developers behind residents' backs. Your case is the missing piece, she told me, eyes lighting up. With you on board, we can finally bring her down. Midnight, a truck rolled up Tommy, 2 guys, materials, and coffee. 6 hours later, there stood a brick wall, 6 feet high, reinforced concrete foundation, built exactly on my property, blocking Karen's illegal gate like it was never there. By sunrise, it was done. At 7:15, I sipped my coffee and waited. Karen's scream still rings in my ears. You can't do this. This is illegal. Police came, but Officer Martinez, no relation, took one look at my paperwork, building permits, survey receipts, and said, Mr. Davis, you're in the clear. Ma'am, unless you have documentation, this is community property. You're out of luck. Karen tried to throw her weight around claimed connections with the sheriff, but Martinez just smiled and called her bluff. It was over, except Karen didn't know it yet. Next day, she called an emergency HOA meeting, packed house. She tried to spin it, painting me as a hostile anti-community villain, waving slides and evidence around. But when it was my turn, I put up the city's survey, the invoice for the illegal gate, even email chains showing Karen had been negotiating to sell pieces of neighborhood land, including my yard, to a developer for over $1 million. You should have seen those faces. The crowd turned on her instantly. And then Sarah Martinez walked in, lawyer at her side, with a detective from the county fraud unit. Mrs. Thompson, you're served. Fraud, embezzlement, abuse of authority. You know the drill. Karen's husband even stood up and apologized, said he couldn't defend her anymore. Ben Harrison called for a vote to remove Karen as president, and 47 hands went up. Hers was the only one against. Justice rolled in quick. Karen had to pay back all the money she stole, remove the gate, make restitution, resign from the HOA, and got banned for life from holding office. She and her husband split. She ended up moving to a tiny apartment across town, working as an admin with zero authority. The wall, though, we left it standing, and the neighborhood painted it with murals and kids' handprints. We turned the spot into a community garden, real honest and open to everyone. Funny thing, after all the stress, the fines, the meetings, and sleepless nights, the real victory wasn't the wall or the lawsuit. It was the way people came together. Folks who used to avoid me brought casseroles, shook my hand, apologized for believing the rumors. I didn't run for HOA president. They wanted me to, but I helped out. and we made the rules fair, the finances transparent, and the gardens open to anyone. Now, 3 years later, that brick wall still stands covered in flowers, memories, laughter. Every spring, kids plant vegetables where Karen once tried to plant fear. The best part, I learned that bullies only win when people stay silent. But when a neighborhood stands together, not even the pushiest HOA president can break them. So yeah, one pink tracksuit, a garden, and a stubborn engineer changed an entire community for the better. And if you've ever dealt with a Karen of your own, maybe you know exactly what I mean. So what do you think, was I right to fight back, or should I have just let it go? Who really draws the line between order and overreach in a community? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear where you stand on neighborhood justice, because this conversation isn't over.